Busy. Honestly, I've moved on already. I even went to see Pastor Femi at the parish, and he told me straight, this man and I are not compatible for marriage. Okay. Maybe this whole thing happening is God removing him from my life on purpose. Abi, you want him. If you want him, you can have him. Oh. But Funke, this man try for you. Oh. If you want to date him, I don't care. You know me na money, me I'm after. Any man wey no get money, I can't date them. So right now, anybody can have Daddy, I don't care. Okay, I will call him to check on him, Sha. Omo, so this guy don't get money now. And my best friend snatch him from me. BC no be good friend, Ochai. Bicey, you snake. You've been sleeping with my man since the beginning. Everything makes sense now. That's why you kept asking about him. That's why you were always checking on him. Now packaging all along. Funke, it's not like that. You said if I want him, I can have him because you're after money. You can't date a broke man. Shut up! You be fake friend. How can you say that? Because it's true. She smiled in my face while stealing my man behind my back. I can't believe she would do this to me. How could she?
If my best friend had not told me, you can have him, I don't care, I would still be single today. But she said those words, and 3 years later, that same sentence almost destroyed both of our lives. Stay with me till the end, because what really happened behind that breakup is not what either of us told the world. And before I go on, if stories like this keep you glued to your screen, hit that subscribe button now, because you don't want to miss what's coming. My name is BC. Everybody in my neighborhood in Ikorodu calls me the quiet one, because I don't talk much. I watch, I listen. And in this story, watching was the only reason I survived what came next. It started 3 years ago. On an ordinary Friday evening, the kind of evening Lagos traffic makes unbearable, and everybody's phone battery seems to die at the same time. My best friend Funke called me, laughing so hard I could barely understand her. BC, come and see this yeye man that has just entered my DM, she said. He's saying all these correct things, telling me I'm beautiful, that he wants to take me out, common man wants to buy me suya, and he's talking like King of England. I laughed with her, because that was Funke. She always found comedy in everything, even in the men she chased. We had been friends since secondary school. The kind of friendship where you finish each other's rice and nobody counts cups. If she was happy, I was happy. If she cried, I cried too, even before I knew why. 2 weeks later, that yeye man had a name, Adediji. Digi for short. The first time I saw him, I understood why Funke had stopped joking about him. He wasn't the loud, flashy type of Lagos big boy who sprays money in the club and disappears before morning. Digi was quiet, almost too calm for a man his age. He drove a black Camry, always ironed his shirt like he was going for an interview, and when he greeted my mother the first time, he knelt all the way down, both knees on the floor, like a real Yoruba son-in-law. My mother, who trusts nobody, blessed him on the spot. This one has good home training, she told me later, as if that settled everything. For a while, it really did seem settled. Deji worked in oil and gas logistics, something to do with contracts and shipping, and business was clearly good. Whenever the three of us went out, he paid for everything, no arguing, no counting. He would take Funke and me shopping on Allen Avenue, buy us matching accessories so you two will stop fighting over whose bag is finer, he'd joke. He bought foodstuff for Funke's mother every month without being asked. I remember one Saturday in particular, maybe 8 months into their relationship, Deji had taken the three of us, me, Funke, and Funke's younger brother, to a small restaurant off Awolowo Road for pounded yam and native soup. He ordered extra plates in case anyone is still hungry later, paid for a taxi to take Funke's brother home afterward, and then quietly slipped me an envelope when I got out of his car. BC, don't argue with me, he said when I tried to refuse it. You are always looking out for Funke, making sure she doesn't do anything reckless with her business money. Somebody has to look out for the person looking out for everybody else. I didn't take that money lightly. I used part of it to renew my hairdressing apprenticeship fees, something I'd been postponing because I simply didn't have the funds. I told Funke about it later, laughing, saying her boyfriend was spoiling both of us. She laughed too, that easy, carefree laugh she had back then, before life started testing all of us. I want you to remember all of this because it matters for what happens later. Write it down if you have to. This man was generous before he had a reason to be. That detail changes everything. For almost 2 years, life moved like a well-written movie. Funke was glowing. She had started a small skincare business with money DG helped her set up, and she posted pictures every week, laughing in his arms, captioning things like "God when" and "He's mine, don't try it." I was happy for her, genuinely. I never once looked at DG and felt anything beyond "this is my friend's man and he treats her well." That's important too. Hold on to that. Then Lagos happened. And by Lagos, I mean the thing that happens to almost everyone eventually. The ground shifting under your feet without warning. It started small. Deji mentioned, almost in passing, that one of his major shipping contracts had delayed payment issues. Nobody worried. In Nigeria, delayed payment is basically a greeting. But then a second contract fell through. Then a business partner he trusted, a man called Segun, who'd met once at Deji's birthday dinner, stopped picking his calls entirely. Funke told me bits and pieces over those months, always minimizing it. It just business wahala, it go soon settle. But I noticed she stopped posting pictures of Deji. I noticed she started replying my messages slower. I noticed, but I didn't push. That was my first mistake. Assuming silence meant nothing was wrong, when silence is usually the loudest warning sign there is. Then one random Tuesday, I sent Funke a simple message, nothing serious. I had seen 2 dresses in a boutique on Adiniran Ogosanya, and I wanted to know when our shopping oga was taking us out again because those dresses were calling my name. Her reply took almost 4 hours to arrive. When it didn't sound like Funke at all. "Deji and I are not together again," she wrote. "He lost his job. He don't scatter finish. No more money, no more anything. If you want him, you fit go meet him. I don't care again." I read that message maybe 6 times, standing in my kitchen with a spoon of jolly rice going cold in my hand. Something about it felt wrong. Not the breakup. People break up every day. But the tone, too flat, too fast, too dismissive for someone who just 3 months earlier had cried on my shoulder saying Deji was the one, BC. I just know it. I called her immediately.
Busy. Honestly, I've moved on already. I even went to see Pastor Femi at the parish, and he told me straight, "This man and I are not compatible for marriage." Okay.
You never even sound like this before. She sighed, long and heavy, like someone reciting a story they'd rehearsed.
Busy. Honestly, I've moved on already. I even went to see Pastor Femi at the parish, and he told me straight, "This man and I are not compatible for marriage." Okay. Maybe this whole thing happening is God removing him from my life on purpose. Abi, you want him? If you want him, you can have him. Oh. But Funke, this man try for you. If you want to date him, I don't care. You know me na money, me I'm after. Any man wey no get money, I can't date them. So right now, anybody can have Daji, I don't care. Okay, I will call him to check on him, Sha.
Now, I don't know about you, but in my experience, when somebody explains their breakup using scripture within 1 week of it happening, it's either they are extremely spiritual or they are hiding something extremely unspiritual. I didn't say that to her. I just said okay, and I let it go for the moment. But that phone call sat in my chest like a stone for days. Something about "you can have him if you want" bothered me more than the breakup itself. Funke was many things, but generous with her men was never one of them. This was the same woman who once stopped talking to a cousin for 2 weeks because the cousin smiled too long at her boyfriend during a family wedding. And now she was handing me Deji like leftover food she no longer wanted. I decided to check on him myself. Not for romance, just human decency, the same way you check on any friend going through a hard season. I sent him a simple text. "Hope you are okay. Heard about everything. If you need anything, let me know." He replied almost instantly. "Thank you, BC. Not many people still remember I exist." that single sentence broke something in me because it was true. Nobody was checking on him. Not Funke, not the friends who used to fill his car every weekend for free rides and free food, not the business associate who used to call him boss every 5 minutes. The moment the money stopped, the people stopped too. Around that same time, I ran into Funke's mother at a market in mile 12. She had always liked me, and that day she pulled me aside, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret she wasn't sure she should share. Bisi, my daughter is not telling me everything, she said, adjusting the wrapper on her shoulder. She said the young man lost his job and that was that. But I raised that girl. I know when she's hiding something from me. Ever since this breakup, she has been going out at odd hours, coming back smelling of another man's cologne, laughing on the phone like nothing painful ever happened. A woman who truly loved someone does not heal that fast, Bisi. Something is not right. I remember standing there in the middle of the noise and the smell of fresh pepper and dried fish, feeling a small, cold seed of suspicion plant itself in my chest. I didn't know what it meant yet. I told her mother it was probably just Funke's way of coping, that people grieve differently. But the seed stayed there, quietly growing roots, long before I had any proof to justify it. I asked if I could visit, just to see how he was doing. He hesitated, I could tell even through text, before saying yes. Nothing prepared me for what I saw when I got there. The apartment that used to have a 55-inch television, a mini bar and matching leather sofas now had almost nothing. A single mattress on the floor, one plastic chair. The television was gone, sold, he later admitted, to offset a debt. Deji himself looked like he had aged 5 years in 5 months. His skin, which was smooth and well cared for, was dry and tired. His eyes had that hollow look people get when they've stopped expecting good news. He told me everything, slowly, like a man confessing sins he was ashamed of. 2 major contracts had collapsed almost simultaneously. A supplier issue on one, and on the other, his business partner Segun had allegedly diverted funds for a shipment and then vanished, blaming market forces in a voice note before switching off his phone permanently. Overnight, he went from managing million-naira contracts to owing rent, feeding on garri soaked in cold water some nights, and watching everyone he thought loved him disappear one after the other. Even Funke, he said quietly, staring at the bare wall like it owed him an explanation. Even Funke left the day I told her I couldn't pay for the shop rent renewal anymore. She said she needed stability. I understood. Nobody wants to marry poverty. I sat there and something in me refused to laugh at him, refused to pity him in that condescending way people do, refused to walk away like everyone else had. Before I left that evening, I quietly transferred 5,000 naira into his account. I didn't announce it. I didn't take a picture for Instagram. I just did it because it felt like the human thing to do. That was the beginning of something neither of us planned. Over the following months, I checked on him regularly, sometimes 2,000 naira, sometimes 5. Sometimes I'd stop by with a small bag of foodstuff, garri, a few tubers of yam, maybe some tomatoes and pepper. It wasn't charity in the way people imagine charity. It was just care, the kind you give a friend expecting nothing back. I told Funke none of this. And looking back now, I understand why that silence would later be used against me. But at the time, it didn't feel like a secret. It felt like a private kindness that didn't need announcing. The same way you don't announce every time you help a stranger cross a busy road. Then, suddenly, Deji went quiet. For almost 6 months, nothing. No replies, no calls, nothing. I assumed the worst at times, that he'd relocated somewhere to start over, or maybe he simply wanted distance from anything connected to his lowest point, including me. I prayed for him sometimes, the way you pray for someone whose story you never got to finish reading. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, on a random Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. It was him. Bisi, he said, and his voice sounded different, stronger, lighter, like a man who had finally exhaled after holding his breath for half a year. Can you come and see me? There's something I need to show you. Now, before I tell you what happened when I got there, let me pause the story for a second, because what I discovered that day changed everything I thought I understood about Funke, about Deji, and honestly about loyalty itself. If you've made it this far, you already know this story is not going where you think it's going. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now, because the next part is the twist that turned my whole world upside down. I arrived at an address he sent me, and it wasn't the empty apartment I remembered. It was a 2-bedroom flat in a decent estate, freshly painted, with actual furniture and the smell of new leather still in the air. Deji opened the door looking like a completely different man. Clean fade haircut, crisp white shirt, the confident posture I remembered before everything collapsed. I stood there confused. Deji, what is going on? He smiled, and for the first time in almost a year, it reached his eyes. Sit down, Bissy. I have to tell you everything, because you deserve to know the truth before anyone else does. What he told me next was not the simple redemption story I expected. It was something far more complicated, something that made my stomach turn. Apparently, months before his business collapsed, Segun, Deji's partner, hadn't acted alone. There had been a third person involved, someone quietly encouraging Segun to divert those contract funds, someone who had access to insider information about Deji's shipments and timelines. That person was a man named Wale. The same Wale who I would later learn had been secretly involved with Funke for almost 8 months, starting long before she ever told me the relationship with Deji was over. I actually laughed out loud when he said this, not because it was funny, but because my brain refused to process it immediately. Wait, Wale as in the same man Funke has been seeing, Deji said, his jaw tightening. I found out through a mutual contact 3 months ago. Wale had been positioning himself for over a year, feeding Segun information, waiting for the right moment to bring my business down so he could step into the gap, both financially and personally. He wanted my contracts, and somewhere along the line, he also wanted Funke. I sat frozen. Every conversation I'd ever had with Funke during that period replayed in my head differently now. It's just business wahala. I've moved on. Pastor said we are not compatible. None of it had been spontaneous grief. It had been a script, timed perfectly to a plan she may not even have understood she was part of. Does she know Wale had a hand in destroying you? I asked quietly. Deji shook his head slowly. I don't think she knows the full extent. I think she believes Wale simply happened to appear when things fell apart. Good timing, bad luck, whatever story she's told herself. But I have messages, I have a recording. I have enough to know this wasn't coincidence. He explained how, in the depth of his collapse, he had spent nights doing quiet, careful digging, partly out of hurt pride, partly out of a need to understand how his entire world had unraveled so fast. A former shipping clerk, sympathetic to how badly Deji had been treated, eventually leaked details confirming Segun and Wale had coordinated the diversion, expecting Deji to fold completely, sell off his remaining assets cheaply, and disappear from the industry. What they hadn't accounted for was Deji quietly rebuilding, using a small consulting contract he'd picked up through his old university friend. Work so minor, neither Segun nor Wale considered it a threat. Slowly, painfully, over those 6 silent months, Deji clawed his way back, this time telling almost nobody, learning the hard way who deserved to know his business and who didn't. So, this apartment, this is real income? I asked. Real, hard-earned, no shortcuts, he said. And Bissy, through all of it, the only person who reached out with nothing to gain was you. Not Funke, not Segun's fake sympathy messages, not a single person who used to call themselves my friend. You. I want to be honest with you watching this right now. Hearing that didn't make me feel triumphant. It made me feel sick, actually, because I suddenly understood the real weight of what had happened to Funke and me, 2 friends who had unknowingly become pawns in someone else's quiet war. Deji continued. He said he had spent weeks debating whether to tell me any of this at all, worried it would look like he was manipulating me into pity, or worse, using the story to justify pursuing me romantically. But he said watching me continue to check on him long after he had nothing left to offer made him realize something. Bisi, you didn't help me because you wanted something from me. You helped me when helping me made zero sense. That kind of person is rare. And somewhere in these months, I stopped seeing you as my ex's best friend and started seeing you as someone I deeply respect. Maybe even someone I could love. There it was. The moment the story stopped being about betrayal and business and quietly became about something else entirely. I told him I needed time. Not because I didn't feel something. If I'm being honest with you, I had felt something shifting for weeks already. Guilt mixed with concern, mixed with a growing tenderness I didn't want to name. But because the situation was messier than a simple love story. There was Funke, there was Wale's betrayal, which she didn't fully understand yet. There was the very real chance that telling the truth would blow up not just a friendship, but possibly expose Funke to a manipulation she never saw coming. For 2 weeks, I sat with all of it, turning the decision over and over in my head like a stone I couldn't put down. Eventually, I decided on something simple. I would not chase Deji, and I would not immediately confront Funke with information that could destroy her. I would simply continue being honest, with myself first, and with anyone who asked me directly. During those 2 weeks of sitting with the decision, I went to my mother, the same woman who had blessed Deji the very first day he knelt to greet her. I didn't tell her everything about Wale. That felt like a burden too heavy to hand her, but I told her enough. That Deji had asked me to consider a future with him, that Funke had once told me I was free to take him, but might not truly have meant it, that I was scared of becoming the villain in a story I didn't fully choose to be part of. My mother listened the way she always does, without interrupting, her hands still moving over a bowl of beans she was sorting for stones. When she finished, she looked up and said something I've carried with me ever since. Bisi, people will always write the story that makes them feel better about their own choices. If Funke walked away from that man when he had nothing, and you stayed, the story was never really about you stealing him. The story is about what each of you were willing to do when there was nothing left to gain. Don't let anybody's guilt trip make you doubt what your own hands did quietly when nobody was watching to give you credit. Those words didn't erase my fear of what was coming, but they gave me something steadier to stand on when the storm eventually arrived. Deji respected that. He didn't pressure me. Instead, he did something that, looking back, sealed everything. 3 months later, he asked me properly. Not with fireworks or a rented billboard, the way Lagos men sometimes do to impress Instagram more than the actual woman. He asked me quietly in his newly rebuilt living room, holding my hands and saying, "I'm not asking you because I have money again. I'm asking you because when I had nothing, you are the only person who treated me like I still mattered." I said yes. Now, here is where the story, which had already been complicated enough, exploded into something the entire internet ended up watching. Word travels fast in Lagos, faster than data can finish loading. Somehow, and neither Deji nor I know exactly who told her first, Funke found out. Not gently, not through a calm phone call.
Omo, so this guy don't get money now. And my best friend snatch am from me. Bisi no be good friend Ochai.
She found out through a screenshot of an old photo of Deji and I at a small gathering, sent to her by someone clearly enjoying the drama a little too much. Her reaction was instant and it was nuclear. She called me screaming, words tumbling over each other so fast I could barely separate them.
Spicy, you snake! You've been sleeping with my man since the beginning. Everything makes sense now. That's why you kept asking about him. That's why you were always checking on him, now packaging all along. Funke, it's not like that. You said if I want him, I can have him because you're after money. You can't date a broke man. Shut up! You be fake friend. How can you say that? Because it's true.
I tried to explain. The money, the visits, the fact that she herself had told me I could take him, the fact that I was never Deji's friend while he was still with her. But grief and humiliation rarely listened to timelines and receipts in the heat of the moment. She wasn't hearing facts anymore. She was hearing betrayal. And once that feeling takes over, logic checks out completely. Within 48 hours, Funke had posted a video on her page, tears streaming, voice shaking with what looked like genuine heartbreak. She called me a fake friend, a snake in human skin, someone who smiled in my face while stealing my man behind my back.
She smiled in my face while stealing my man behind my back. I can't believe she would do this to me. How could she?
She never mentioned that she had explicitly told me I could have him. She never mentioned Wale's name at all. Whether out of embarrassment, ignorance of his real role, or some lingering loyalty to him, I still don't fully know. The video went viral almost overnight. The kind of viral that turns your real name into a trending topic by the next morning. People I'd never met were suddenly experts on my character, my intentions, my entire moral standing as a human being. Some called for me to publicly apologize. Others somehow found and shared old photos of Funke and Deji together, dissecting every caption for clues. I stayed quiet for the first week, mostly out of shock, partly because I genuinely didn't know how to defend myself without exposing information about Wale that wasn't fully mine to reveal. Information that Funke could have in her, information she had not asked for, and might not have wanted publicly confirmed. But silence, as you already know from earlier in this story, is often read as guilt. The pressure built until it became unbearable. Eventually, a popular relationship page reached out, asking if I'd be willing to share my side on a live stream alongside Funke, moderated so that both of us could speak without interruption.
Against Deji's initial hesitation, he worried it would only add fuel to an already uncontrollable fire. I agreed, because at some point, watching an entire nation build a version of you out of half-truths and screenshots, you either speak or you let the lie become permanent history. The live stream had, at its peak, over 40,000 people watching simultaneously. Funke arrived visibly emotional, eyes red, clearly having cried right before going on. I arrived calm on the outside, shaking on the inside. She spoke first, repeating largely what she'd said in her viral video. Betrayal, friendship destroyed, years of loyalty thrown away for a man. Comments flooded in supporting her, calling me every name available in 3 different Nigerian languages. Then it was my turn. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't attack her. I simply laid out the timeline, calmly, factually. The message where she told me Deji and I were free to be together. The months of silence from Deji where I had no romantic contact with him at all. Only quiet financial and emotional support during his lowest point. The fact that I never once reached out to him while they were still together. Then, carefully, choosing my words like someone walking across broken glass, I mentioned Wale, not accusing Funke of anything, simply stating that there were details about the timing of her relationship with Wale that she herself might want clarity on, separate from anything between Deji and I. The chat exploded. People began pulling up old posts, tagging mutual friends, asking pointed questions about Wale's sudden appearance right as Deji's business collapsed. Within the live stream itself, in real time, the narrative began shifting from BC betrayed her friend to something far messier. Questions about whether Funke had left at the first sign of poverty, whether Wale's involvement was more calculated than anyone initially assumed, and whether the entire story had layers none of us fully controlled anymore. The moderator, clearly sensing the shift in energy, turned back to Funke and asked directly, "When exactly did you and Wale start talking? Before or after Deji's business issue started?" Funke hesitated. It was only a second, maybe two, but on a live stream watched by tens of thousands of people, 2 seconds of silence stretches like an hour. It was around the same period, but that doesn't mean anything, she finally said, her voice tightening. "Timing is not a crime," I replied gently, careful not to sound like I was attacking her. "I'm not here to accuse you of anything, Funke. I'm only saying that some of us were moved around like pieces on a board, and neither of us fully saw the hand moving them until much later. I found out things about Wale that I didn't go looking for. I'm not asking you to defend him. I'm asking you to protect yourself by asking your own questions." For a moment, something shifted in her expression, the anger cracking just slightly to reveal something closer to confusion, maybe even fear. She didn't respond immediately. The comment section sent some demanding Wale be tagged and dragged into the stream himself, others defending Funke fiercely, insisting the whole Wale theory was a distraction I had invented to make myself look innocent. An hour into the stream, someone claiming to be a former colleague of Segun's dropped a comment that silenced the chat for almost a full minute. Ask Segun why he blocked Deji's number the same week Wale started following Funke's business page. Some of you are cheering for the wrong side. Funke's face changed completely when that comment was read aloud by the moderator. Whatever composure she had left drained out of her in real time, live, in front of 40,000 strangers. She didn't storm off, she didn't scream, she simply went quiet, staring somewhere past the camera, as if pieces of her own story were rearranging themselves in her mind for the first time, live on the internet, with no privacy left to process it in private. Funke and I never spoke again after that night, not out of dramatic hatred, but out of exhaustion that neither of us knew how to move past. Sometimes friendships don't end with a loud final fight. They end with silence because both people realize the version of the relationship worth saving no longer exists. 6 months later, Deji and I got married. It wasn't the extravagant 1,000-guest affair Lagos weddings are famous for. It was small, intimate, filled with people who had actually stood by us during the difficult months. My mother, who blessed him from that very first kneeling greeting years ago. His elderly aunt, one of the few relatives who never abandoned him during his collapse. A handful of true friends on both sides. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, Deji told me one more thing he had been holding back. Something he said he needed to get off his chest before we stood in front of witnesses and made promises to each other. He told me that after the live stream aired, Segun had eventually reached out to him privately, not to apologize, but to warn him. Wale, it turned out, had grown desperate after losing both the business opportunity and, slowly, Funke's trust following the stream's fallout. He had tried, briefly, to reach out to Deji directly, offering a clumsy, half-hearted explanation dressed up as an apology, clearly hoping to avoid any further public exposure. Deji said he listened to the entire message without interrupting and then deleted it without replying. Some people spend their whole lives trying to explain the damage they caused, instead of simply not causing it in the first place, he told me. I decided a long time ago that I didn't need his explanation to move forward. I only needed to know the truth, so I would never again mistake convenient loyalty for real loyalty. I asked him if he ever heard from Funke again, even indirectly. He shook his head. Once, through a mutual friend, I heard she had taken a break from social media entirely for a while.
I don't know what she's going through now, and honestly, I choose not to carry that weight. Some doors close not because we slam them, but because staying inside them any longer would only hurt everyone involved. That honesty, delivered so plainly, without bitterness or gloating, was one of the many small moments that confirmed I was marrying the right man. Not because life had made him rich again, but because life had made him honest in a way most people never bother to become. As I stood at the altar, watching Deji's eyes fill with tears he wasn't even trying to hide, I thought about the strange, twisted road that had brought us there. A road that started with my best friend telling me I could have a man she didn't care about anymore, and ended with the discovery that her own relationship had been quietly engineered by someone with far darker intentions than any of us understood at the time. We left for a short honeymoon in Calabar, away from the noise, away from comment sections, still occasionally arguing about who was right and who was wrong in a story the internet had turned into public property. I remember our second night there, sitting on a small balcony overlooking the river, Deji's arm around my shoulders, the air finally quiet after a month of noise neither of us had asked for. He turned to me and said, half joking, half serious, "Do you ever think how none of this would have happened if you hadn't sent that one message asking about shopping?" I laughed because he was right. One careless, ordinary message, the kind you send without thinking twice, had unraveled a chain of events neither of us could have predicted. A lost job, a hidden betrayal, a friendship tested past its breaking point, a wedding neither of us saw the year before. Life rarely announces its biggest turns in advance. Most times it hides them inside the smallest, most forgettable moments, waiting for you to look back later and realize that that was where everything actually began. Even now, months into our marriage, people still debate our story online whenever it resurfaces. Some say I betrayed a friendship, full stop, no context needed. Others say loyalty was never really mine to betray, since Funke had already discarded what she claimed to value the moment things got hard. A few understand the deeper twist, that none of us, not me, not Funke, not even Deji at first, fully saw Wale's hand moving pieces behind the scenes until it was almost too late. Sometimes late at night, Deji and I still talk about it, turning the pieces over like people examining an old photograph for details they missed the first time. He tells me he doesn't hate Funke really. He believes she was as much a victim of Wale's quiet scheming as he was of Segun's betrayal. Just a victim who never got the chance to fully understand it before the internet turned her private wound into public entertainment. I agree with him more days than I don't. I've also stopped needing strangers online to validate my version of events. For a long time after that live stream, I found myself refreshing comment sections, hungry for people to declare me innocent, as if enough strangers agreeing with me could erase the discomfort of knowing that, in a small way, I had been part of my best friend's heartbreak, even if I hadn't caused it directly. Eventually, I realized that peace doesn't come from winning an argument with 40,000 people you'll never meet. It comes from knowing, quietly, in the parts of yourself nobody else can see, that you acted with integrity when it mattered most. Here's what I've come to believe after living through all of it. People will always judge the surface of a story faster than they'll investigate its depth. It's easier to call someone a snake than to ask why a woman would hand her boyfriend to her best friend in the first place. It's easier to celebrate a wedding than to ask what silent kindness offered with nothing to gain made that wedding possible at all. The moral of this story isn't complicated, even though the path to it certainly was. Character is revealed in private moments, not public ones. Anybody can love you at your peak, when your money is loud and your future looks certain. Very few people will still show up when you are sitting on a bare mattress with nothing left to offer them in return. Pay close attention to those few people. They are usually the ones worth building a life with. And if there's one warning worth carrying from everything Deji, Funke, and I went through, it's this. Be careful who you dismiss when life humbles them, because you never truly know who is quietly watching, who is quietly scheming, and who is quietly choosing, without any announcement at all, to love you at your lowest.
Now, if you are BC, what would you have done in this situation?
Will you still marry Deji? Let us know in the comment section.
Thank you.
If this story moved you, touched something honest in you, or made you rethink what real loyalty looks like, don't scroll past without hitting that subscribe button. There are more stories like this coming. Real, raw, and full of the kind of twists life throws at us when we least expect them. Stay close. You don't want to miss what's next.
Come and see this yeye man that has just entered my DM. Come on, man wants to buy me suya. Your boyfriend is spoiling both of us. He really is.
A business partner I trusted stopped picking my calls entirely. A business partner I trusted stopped picking my calls entirely.
Busy. Honestly, I've moved on already. I even went to see Pastor Femi at the parish, and he told me straight, this man and I are not compatible for marriage. Okay.
Busy, my daughter is not telling me everything. She said the young man lost his job and that was that. But I raised that girl.
I'm not asking you because I have money again. I'm asking because when I had nothing, you were the only person who treated me like I still mattered.
Yeah.